Good evening and welcome to the Parallel Prism show. I'm your host this evening and my name's Jo, and unfortunately my guest isn't very well this evening, so we are rescheduling. However, I've got the wonderful Paul Ruck who's in our studio tonight, and we're going to be discussing mediums, aren't we, Paul?
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, we're gonna attempt it anyway. Let's just put it that way.
You were a little bit off the mark then, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've sort of just decided this second that we're going to be talking about medium. So
No, it's kind of makes you laugh, doesn't it? But this is kind of a bit of a pop up, off the cuff show, isn't it, Paul? Tonight?
it is absolutely. So we want lots of participation in the chat room
God,
to
yeah,
keep us going.
I think we definitely need that. So
Yeah.
I don't really know where to start. But what's your take on a psychic medium?
Okay. Well, I've used to start when I first started my last business up, Trident. We used to do medium nights. So I used to be quite involved in the circuit, not so much these days, but some of the local mediums I'd get in to do the medium nights, and I think some of them were quite impressive with what they were coming out with,
Hmm.
and they sort of have their own following as well. But there are ones that are quite vague, still have the big
Yeah,
following, but they're still quite vague in what they put out. I mean, I remember one quite popular medium around here. I won't name names or anything.
yeah.
He was doing a medium night, and I attended, and he he done me a reading, and he knew me through social media. And one of the things he come out with was like, "Oh, you like to walk around old castles, don't you?" And I'm like, "Well,
That's a bit general, isn't it?
yeah, that is a bit
Not,
vague."
yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
say, oh, you've walked around such and such a castle like Framlington, like you did this weekend, but not mentioned anything to do with that or mentioned anything that you would have looked at in any sort of specific detail.
no, exactly. And it was like you like walking around old castles and stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you sort of know that anyway because you know what I do. So it's sort of like a bit of a given.
Yeah, I think some people, I mean, I say this quite loosely, but I think some people out there do actually are quite general and quite vague in information.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes I actually amaze myself, even now, about things that I actually, I sit there and I say I get right, but it's not actually me, is it? I'm just a vessel really for information.
Well, that's it. I mean, there is a medium that I really like to see, and I'm really good friends
Oh,
with.
thank you.
Besides you, obviously. Yeah. Okay, so that's two mediums I'm really good friends with. Um, yeah. So I when she's out on the circuit close to where I live, I like to go and see her work, and she's very much like that. She's like, she does a bit of speech at the beginning, and she's like, just think of your body as an out shell like a car, and when you
Hmm.
pass, it's you getting out of your car and going to another, going up, just getting out of your car, so you're leaving the shell behind, um, and some of the things that she gets is really quite emotional for some people,
Yeah.
and she's very accurate and very direct. Um, she'd be like, if she's in a room, she'd be like, right, okay, well, I've got this spirit, and it's concentrated sort of over in this area, and then she'll like have a little group of people on a table, and it's like it's one of you, but I'm not sure which one. What can you take this? And then she keeps coming out with stuff and sort of narrows it down a bit, and I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I think because when I've done that previously, when I've done like a pub, I did a couple of nights over in Huddersfield
mm,
when I was quite poorly with my spine, and some of the things because I work in that sort of way. It's daunting being stood up in front of everybody, but
yeah,
when you're actually stood there, I never know where I'm going. And it's really funny because Warren, who I was working with that night, he just actually said to me, you've got this, you're fine, just stand up and they'll show you where you need to go. And
Yeah.
it was literally, I stood up and I kept being drawn to this group of lovely girls. And there were about 4 or 5 of them all sat together, all blonde, lovely little things.
Hmm.
And I just went, I want to come to you girls. But that was before I kind of harnessed the emotional side of things. Because well, you and Kerry both know I'm quite a sensitive soul.
Yeah.
So obviously had this lady through who'd obviously passed away who was of their age. But everything that I said was so resonant with them.
Hmm.
And it was so lovely to listen to them talk
Yeah.
about her in such a lovely light when we'd finished. And it wasn't until one girl said to me, she said, you could have absolutely said anything to us. She said, but there was one thing that you said that just had us all literally clutching each other's hands. And
Yeah.
she said, you couldn't have made that up at all. She said, there is no way. So there are things like that that I find fascinating even now, like, doing readings for people and coming up with things and them saying, oh no, I can't take that. And you then find out a couple of weeks later that
Yeah.
what you've actually said is true because they've done a bit of research into it. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. There is that. I mean, especially, I can understand like when a medium gives a reading and they're like, well, I don't know, I don't know that side of my family or whatever, and then they go away and then come back. I can see how that would make you feel as the medium.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got that spot on.
It's
But
really
I mean,
funny because as well, yeah, like today, my best friends moved house over the weekend,
yeah,
and I just called in for a quick cup of coffee, and it was so strange that I walked into the house and I instantly felt really at home there, and it was such a warm, friendly house. And
mm,
then when I walked into the kitchen, like my friend said, "Do you think I've made a mistake?" And I just looked at her and I went, "No, I don't." And with that, I heard her granddad say, I'm home and she's at home. And that's
yeah,
all he said. And literally, I felt myself welling up because today's been quite an emotional day, but I felt myself welling up and just being very, very teary eyed, which in turn, she knows what I'm like. And we kind of bounce off each other. And then she was just like, oh my God. And I said, it was your granddad, just clear as day.
yeah,
And she couldn't believe it, but she said, oh, I keep thinking I've made a mistake. And I said, you've not made a mistake. You've done exactly what you were supposed to do.
yeah,
So yeah, so she's, it's things like that as well. And, when she said to me, do you feel anything when you're walking around? And I was like, I feel like it's a lovely home. And it's nice to feel that, I think, especially when
yeah,
you've got this gift.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I think again when I go on investigations, I don't go in for the spiritual protection that some mediums put on, like to go and do with the guests. Because my attitude is like, if anything's going to happen, I want it to happen to me.
Hmm.
But I'm still in that mindset that I'm protected because it's my own natural protection.
Yeah.
So if anything's going to affect me or anything like that, then it's got to be really strong for me to feel it, because I literally just repel everything, apparently. So I've been told.
Mm.
So I
Richard,
mean, go on.
sorry, go on.
Okay, I was gonna say, like when we go to locations, and if anything does affect me, or comes across, like for example, when you walk into an atmosphere, and you can feel it really heavy, it's got to be
Mm.
really strong to be able to affect me. And when we went to what location was it? The Haunted Antiques Research Centre in
Mm.
Hinkley. I had an incident there where I got some really strong abdominal pains,
Mm.
and that was so painful. I really don't know what that was, whether it was a medical issue or whether or not it was a spiritual one. I'm sort of still two minds about it.
Right.
But it was still interesting because it only happened that once there. But if that was a spirit connection in any way, then it had to be strong.
Yeah.
So
Do you
there
do
is
you
something
think
there.
Yeah, do you think that because we are paranormal investigators, do you think that we are more, what's that word, hardened to actually having those spiritual encounters rather than being, like most Joe Public? I know it sounds really stupid, but when Joe Public, who've never been on an investigation before, goes into an investigation and they come up with all the, you know, we get told, oh, if you feel anything, then just
Mm.
say it. Chances are somebody else could be feeling exactly what you're feeling. And then obviously the powers of suggestion then come out, like, if you feel headaches, if you feel sick, if you feel cold, automatically you're putting that into their head. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do agree because there is a lot of power of suggestion there. Even just walking into an event, because obviously you're going there to hunt ghosts, effectively. So if anything happens, people jump to that conclusion. With my team in particular, I class myself as the team medic, and if anyone does get ill for whatever reason, I can literally, I can take their blood pressure, their pulse rate, their respiratory rate,
mhm.
blood sugar levels. I can pretty much give a full medical, effectively, just to make sure that it is, so we can rule medical issues out. And I find
Yeah,
that works really well.
well, yeah, because if it's medical, then it's quite easy to see, isn't it? Especially if you're a trained first aider. Whereas if it's spiritual, it's not as easy to see, is it? And
Well, no, I mean that's it. I mean there are times when you'll have a team and they're not first aid trained, or any medical training whatsoever, and it's quite easy to jump to the conclusion that it could be spirit, but then equally, as I said, it could be quite something as simple as they've not had enough drink today, or the sugar levels have dropped. It's all stuff that I can test for, but a basic first aider wouldn't be able to do that because you need advanced skills for that one.
yeah. Um, has anybody fallen ill though whilst they've been on an investigation with you that has been spiritual rather than obviously medical?
No, but I have caught someone out faking the injury.
Oh,
Basically, we was at Coalhouse Fault with the team that was there, and one of the ladies decided that she would be affected by spirit, and she started acting drunk. So basically, when I got there, we took her into the tea room thing and said, like, just chill out for 5 minutes, see how you feel. She got a lot better, and I said, look, I want you to go home. And she's like, no, 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 I'll be fine. I'll be all right for the rest of the event. So I'm like, okay, but on your own head be it, sort of thing. So I let her carry on after about 20 minutes rest. And then I was called to her back again, and she had a full collapse. When I got there, she was conscious. The team leader already had her in the recovery position. So it was just basically wait until she was well enough to get up, sit up, and get her out of there. But I took the pulse rate, blood pressure, everything come back normal. So I'm really pretty much convinced that there was nothing medical wrong with her. And I personally think she was just faking it. But, I suppose we can't really be 100% sure. But she came around pretty quick once I'd done all the checks and stuff. So I think it was a case of, oh crap, you know.
yeah. I mean, God, when I remember when I first started out, we were doing an investigation at De Grey Street, and we used to put out constantly that people under the influence of alcohol will be sent back on their way with no
Mm,
refunds, etc., etc. And we've got a full house this one evening,
mm,
and it's quite funny really because I'm not a very confrontational person. I don't really like that, and it was left to me after discussing things with certain members of the group that it became quite clear that this girl was highly intoxicated intoxicated was causing a disturbance, obviously, just even on the walk round.
Yeah,
And I'll never forget it to this day. And obviously, there was no medical intervention or anything like that. But, just people and alcohol on events, I don't
absolutely.
know why.
Yeah, no, I think some people go out and have a drink before and then go on to the events, but yeah, I mean we had the no alcohol or drugs policy also, so I think there was only one guy that ever turned up with a can of beer and we made him leave it in the car basically, but we never really had any issue with that in the past. So people are pretty good when it comes
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, usually they are. I think it's just a couple that just don't really listen to it and kind of just think, oh, I'll just have one. And then one
Yeah,
turns into two, two turns into four. And then before you know it, they get there and see people who they wouldn't necessarily be on an event with. They probably wouldn't choose to be, friends with them or anything like that. But just making an absolute fool of themselves, but
and
also spoiling it for everybody.
yeah, but it's not also it's not only just that. I think with alcohol obviously lowers your inhibitions, and it can make your mind more open and susceptible to spiritual attachments or things like that. So I think not only just for the sake of the other guests. I think it's also for their sake as well, because you don't want
Yeah.
anything bad to happen to them either.
No. But it just causes an issue, doesn't it, all the way round, and everybody then starts to think to themselves, oh well, we shouldn't have that. And it causes ill feeling, which,
Yeah,
then in turn it makes everybody kind of on edge and things. But yeah, I ejected her anyway, and her mum and was subject to quite a lot of abuse and
mm,
etc. But did it bother me? No, it didn't. And when they're hurling around, you're a crap medium, you're this, you're that, and you kind of you do take it personally. A lot of people do
yeah,
take it personally. And I remember Sally obviously saying she's had to adopt a thick skin rapid
yeah,
because there are always people out there who want to say things to you. Oh, that's not correct. And I did a reading for a young lad actually, and I had his dad, and everything that I said, he was like, no, 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 no. And it
mm,
wasn't until he got up and walked out of this room that he was like, oh no, she was crap. She didn't tell me anything. And then his girlfriend started to probe him, and he,
yeah,
he started to talk about it. And I could hear every word that he was saying. And he was talking to her, and she was like, well, that's right, because that's what you told me a couple of weeks ago. And he was like, what? And she was like, that's right, what she's just said. And this
yeah,
is right. And that's right. And this is right. And he came back in and apologized to me
yeah.
for
I,
saying that
I
I was
think
crap.
when you get readings, sometimes you just don't think, and it's quite
Yeah,
often you go away for a little while, and it's like, oh, actually, yeah, no, that does ring a bell, you know. So
yeah.
I've had that before.
Yeah, I think sometimes, like, I mean, I had a reading from a guest who's obviously not being here tonight, and some of
Hmm.
the things I've read it, some of the things I can't really take right now,
Yeah,
but there were certain names and things that she came up with that I was like, wow, that's actually quite true.
yeah,
Um, but those people who are close to me will know, obviously, some of the things that she said, but not everybody, because, well, like anybody, I don't try and discuss like family and things like that, and especially on the radio shows and apart from my family.
yeah,
But she was very, very good. And I've probably only seen one other person who I've kind of really, really, really rated. And
yeah,
unfortunately, she passed away a number of years ago, but she was phenomenal, was Una Pierce. And she was from Huddersfield, and she had a waiting list as long as my arm. And I'm
hmm.
hearing good things about other mediums in the area as well. So I might have to start booking a few readings, I think.
Absolutely, sounds good.
Yeah. So what do you think about, history and the first ever medium who was about?
Do you know what? I really don't know. I really don't know who that was. I don't know too much about it. Um,
Well, there's me
yeah,
thinking you knew.
no, no. To be fair, mediumship. Although I've sort of I've been told that I can do it. I have given a reading once or twice in the past, and been quite good at it, apparently. I just struggle with doing it because I I'm more I like the paranormal investigation side of things, so I'm always questioning
Mm.
everything. So when I get something, it's like, am I just clutching at straws? I don't know.
I
And I'm
think
very
that's just we were doing this the other day actually, and it's all to do with your brain, isn't it? Obviously, turning off the
yeah
turning off you need to turn off your rational brain sort of thing. I'm just going to put it into layman's terms because it's so
yeah
much
no that's
easier.
it yeah
But when I first started in my like giving readings and stuff like that, I used to try and rationalize quite a lot of things, and in the end, I just thought to myself, I just kept hearing catchphrase, "Say what you see, just say what you see," and I was
yeah
kind of sat there and said to myself, do I just say what I see? Because it might sound really stupid to them, but obviously it might make sense, but that's what
yeah
I do. And I don't try and make any bones of it now because there is no point because you know, you can't, you get to the point where you think, am I just saying this now or does it actually make sense? And I don't look at people when I give them readings either now
mm,
because you can't be reading their body language or their facial expressions. So I
yeah
don't actually look at people, but it it is strange how the information does come to you, and especially when you know you're actually reading for somebody who you've never met before.
yeah yeah. No,
That's
no,
very strange.
it is
Very strange.
absolutely. I mean, I've done that sort of stuff before, but I've never really felt comfortable doing it. With me, I sort of if it is a gift that I've got, then I suppose I use it in a different way because where I've got that medical training behind me, um,
Hmm.
it's almost like I keep finding patients in the middle of the street. You know, I could go anywhere, and I'm sure somewhere along the line we'll need the emergency training that I've got. You know, I'll go to town, for example, at Basildon, and there is one particular route that I normally take all the time, and then just something will say to me, "No, go a different way this week," and
Hmm.
I'll go that different way, and there'll be someone flat out on the floor. So it's almost like I'm guided to these people that need my skills.
Mm.
So
Well,
it's
they say that though, don't they? They say that you're drawn to the kind of vocation that you're chosen, and
yeah,
you're probably really a natural healer sort of thing if you've gone
well,
into obviously that kind of
yeah.
profession.
I've been told by numerous mediums that I am a healer, but I've never really explored that sort of spiritual side at all, because it's not what
Mm.
I'm really into. But with it wasn't until I became godfather to my godsons, I had to do a course on how to be a good godfather. And it wasn't actually till then that I actually started questioning my path, as it was, because when I was a kid, I went to a preschool which was called St John's. Then when I left there, I went to a nursery called St John's. Then I joined a scout group called St John's. And then I joined St John Ambulance.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like a running theme all the way through my life. And it wasn't until I'd done that course at, funny enough, it was the Church of St John. But it wasn't until I'd done that course that I just started thinking, well, maybe it's sort of a destiny thing. You know, you've got this path in front of you that you're meant to walk, and all the way through it you'll get signs, and I think my sign was just the whole St John thing. Um, and now I'm fully qualified and trained with them. It's like anyone that needs me, I'm guided to. So I think that's how I use my special superpower ability, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I think quite a lot of mediums do have extra. extraordinary powers, like healing and something further than just the mediumship side of things. I
Mm.
know quite a lot of friends who are also mediums who are, they love nature. They're very good with gardening, like green fingers and things like that.
Mm.
Um, so what's your take on that sort of thing? But just before sorry, because I've got Ness in the chat room and she's asked me if I find being a medium, do I find it hard to on a daily basis to block it out sometimes? Well, first of all, Ness, happy birthday. 'Cause it's your birthday today, so happy birthday today. And no, I don't find it difficult anymore because my day-to-day life is really, really busy. So I don't really have time for them to bother me during the day. It's when I'm settling down to go to sleep that it kind of bothers me. But then when I let them in, my hands start to burn, and that's when I know that they're badgering me to kind of work. But I think of late they know everything that's been going on, and they've kind of left me alone.
Mm.
So yeah, but with regards to that, I feel like I'm a natural healer because my hands burn, and numerous times when I've done massage when I was at beauty school, um, one of my good friends who I'm still friends with now, Sue, I actually did her a reading just by, I didn't even touch her, to be honest. It was like Reiki, so
Yeah.
it was unbelievable. But I do think that mediums do have an extra gift along with their mediumship.
See, I don't know whether it's an extra gift. I think maybe that. I mean, I know that most mediums say it anyway, but I just think you're born with this certain level of whatever you want to call it, mediumship. But if you don't practice it, if you don't use it, you lose it, as they say.
Yeah,
So if you don't practice it and learn to grow that and nurture it into what skills you have today, then quite frankly, it's almost like you lose it. But you've always got that seed of mediumship skill in there. It's just how it grows, basically. I think that's probably best analogy to use.
yeah, well, I'm absolutely useless at growing anything. Plants, I tend to I don't know, I'm not a green fingered person. However, I've been in the garden. I've got a huge phobia to slugs, worms, and those big green horrible slugs are just
Yeah, but with you, you
my,
just might have
ugh.
grown it. You just might have grown it in a different direction, because of I know you do the mediumship stuff, um, but that's sort of the way you've grown your skill.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just like my mum is such a natural earth witch.
Mm.
My mum's garden is absolutely stunning with quite a lot of wild flowers, and another one of my friends who's a medium, Juliana, she's exactly the same. She's
Yeah.
got this unbelievable garden. She loves animals and things like that. So I do think mediums do tend to channel, from the earth, but also from animals and things like that. So
Mm.
that might be a show in itself, I think, that Paul.
Yeah, that's it. Go for it. Right,
Yeah,
take
I
that
think I
take
need
that
to.
theory and run.
Yeah, I think I might need to.
Yeah, jot that down. That'll be next week's show.
Animals and medium. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, the connection.
yeah, I mean, let's go back history wise. Mediums, trans mediums have been around for hundreds of years, haven't they?
They
And
have. I mean, I don't. I mean, again, because I'm not a medium or anything like that, and I don't claim to be. But I think that the furthest I've ever gone back with this whole mediumship. I mean, okay, we could go back centuries. I think with like necromancy and all that sort of stuff, because that's sort of the divination with the rune stones and stuff. That's all tied in. I think with mediumship. And obviously, Ovis's cards, Orisis cards, whatever you want to call them,
yeah,
tarot and all that. That you're going back centuries. But for me, I mean, I've probably only gone back looking at cases like to the Victorian period. So anything before that, I've just heard about and not really studied that much. But
Yeah, I think,
I
yeah,
have actually just decided that I want to look into runes. So I've ordered a set of rune stones, and a couple of books on the subject. So I'm going to start looking into that and research those.
yeah, because, well, back in the day, and obviously watching the film, I think it's called Ouija, I think, and watching that film, actually, it was about a week and a bit ago,
Hmm.
um, kind of got me onto the subject of back in its heyday, the physical mediums basically that could perform stage magic tricks, basically. So,
Yeah.
like the Bang sisters, the Davenport brothers, they were brought into disrepute because they were actually using their own bodies as conduits to actually manipulate their subjects,
Hmm.
basically. But they got found out, didn't they? So it's, you know, I always think about things like that and how people now in this present day, how they can actually fake information. And with the likes of social media everywhere and, you know, Facebook, I always say to people, if you want to message me for a reading, do not add me as a friend on Facebook. I don't want to look at your Facebook. I don't
Hmm.
want to see anything. I don't want to see any pictures. I just want you to send me a picture of yourself, and that is it. I don't need to be asked any questions. I don't need anything like
Hmm.
that. Which,
I don't think it's really that difficult to fake stuff if you're that vague. I mean, it'd be quite easy just to say to someone, okay, I'm getting, I don't know, a male spirit come through. He's on a grandfather link, and he's got some sort of link to the war. People make that fit.
yeah, I
You
think
can
they
come up
do
with
make it
anything,
fit.
and a lot of people do make those details fit. And again, for me, a medium's got to be absolutely spot on. They've got to be able
Yeah.
to stand there and say to me, right, okay, well, I've got a message for you, and points to me directly, and it's got to
Mm.
be so accurate.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I just take it with a pinch of salt.
I think it's when you describe the people as well. And I think when you actually describe a person, it's
Hmm.
not necessarily, I'm speaking from experience, not necessarily all the time will they give you a name or anything like that. Sometimes they make you work for it. Um,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
some,
again, sometimes, I mean, if you go back through the eras, I mean, you could pretty much have an educated guess. If you're into your history, you could probably have an educated guess to what people would wear in that
mm,
specific era. So if you want to go back to, say, for example, you as I said with soldier, you know, obviously he's going to have a uniform, but then maybe you could say, okay, well he's got this other woman coming in with him now, and she's in like 1930s, 1940s outfit.
mm.
It fits. You
That's
can
very
still make it
vague.
fit.
Yeah, but that's still very vague, isn't it? It's not,
Well, yeah,
you
but I
know,
mean, you can still describe like maybe she's wearing a headscarf because again, headscarves were quite common in that period.
yep.
It's it's also down to the amount of history that the medium would know to be able to try and pick some of the vague points that people can make fit.
Well, our Penny would have a field day with me because, to be honest with you, I love looking at old buildings. I love looking at castles, but
Mm.
history I flunked out. I'm not a history buff by any stretch of imagination. People who know me know that I love architecture. I love buildings.
Mm.
Don't ask me about the history of anything because I have got no clue whatsoever.
To be fair, I mean, when I was in school, it was all I wanted to be an archaeologist. To be fair, that's what I wanted to do when I was younger, and I studied the history, but it was all World War One and Two history at school, and that really didn't interest me. I was more into the ancient Egyptians, Aztecs,
Mm.
Mayans, and all that sort of stuff. Um, so I failed my GCSE history because I had no interest in that subject. Um, and but now, I mean, I'm learning more and more. I do watch some of these like time team programs where they're doing archaeological digs, um, and things like that. And I've learned history through that,
Mm.
really.
I think you always tend to learn though, don't you, when you're comfortable with the actual subject. I mean,
Yeah.
I was never any good at history when I was at school. I wasn't, and even now, I love going to these National Trust properties, and I love walking around the houses and just soaking up the fabric, the building, and seeing exactly what's there. But ask
Well,
me to
that's it. I mean,
reiterate it.
last year I went to Italy for a holiday, and one of the excursions was to Verona, and they wanted to show us the Romeo and Juliet balcony. And I thought, do
Mm.
you know what? Yeah, okay, I could go with that because it's a historical place, place of interest. So I went there and I weren't really impressed with it. So I'm like, well, okay, we're in the middle of Verona. Where else are we going to go? And we actually went off the beaten track. So you had all the tourists and that going up to the markets, and you had all the tourists around this balcony, which really didn't really impress me that much. But we found an old church just around the corner in the back street, and it turned out to be a Knights Templar church.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was like really old and Gothic, and it was an absolutely amazing building. And we stayed in there for like an hour and a half, just looking at certain aspects of it, and that was more fascinating than the balcony.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I was just, while you just mentioned that now, I was just on Google actually trying to find it,
Oh, what
the
the
actual church.
yeah, it's literally just around the corner from the balcony, but it's sort of in the back streets. So yeah, no, we just went off the beaten track a bit, and they've got like a small version of the Colosseum. I can't think at the moment what they call them, but that again, that was really nice to see. Um,
They used to have quite a lot of those though, didn't they? I know they've got the little like the amphitheaters, aren't they? They used to have quite a lot of those in like Croatia, and it
yeah,
honestly, when I first saw the one in Pula, I thought it was exactly the same as the one in Rome. It was obviously not on a grander scale as the one in Rome, but
mm,
all of those places in Italy have all got the small amphitheatre stroke colosseums, and just the
yeah.
history that surrounds them is unbelievable.
I mean, we went to a place called Laziz, and it's a small medieval village on the edge of Lake Garda, and it's got a castle wall around the outside of this village, and everything is in the middle, and it's got like a little marina that goes out onto the lake for the old fishing boats when they used to bring in the fish and stuff.
Mm.
That is an absolutely amazing place, and if anyone's into the whole medieval period, that is a really nice medieval village to go to, and it's somewhere where you could sit at a local coffee shop on the actual edge of the
Mm.
lake, and just have a peaceful day. It's really nice there.
It's really funny you should say that, because it sounds like me and you have holidayed in the same place, but it wasn't, because I was in Croatia and you were in Italy. So, but it sounds exactly like, I cannot say it for the life in me, but it's called Svetvinchna or something like that. I cannot say it for whatever reason. But the
Yeah,
last weekend that we were there, they were hosting a medieval festival. So they had like the old bucket swings, and they had all the jousting and the horses, and it was
yeah,
inside the castle. It was inside the castle moat. They would have had like a big gate, and
yeah,
literally it was just in the bottom, and it absolutely teamed it down on this Friday night when we'd got there, and we were coming home on the Saturday,
yeah,
and I was actually gutted that we'd not been there all day, because it looked like a fantastic like festival there,
mm,
and the history as well, because they have what's called the Witch's House,
yeah,
and it's like a virtual reality, and you could go in and it would give you all the information and the history, but there was nobody in when I wanted to go in. And I remember
mm.
Stanley just kept saying to me, Jojo, you're not allowed in the Witch's House. And yeah, it was quite funny. He kept saying to me, obviously a 4-year-old, saying to me, "Oh, you can't go in the witch's house. She'll have us for dinner." And but yeah, it was quite cute,
And
really.
just
But
turned around and said, "Yeah, but she makes a mean gingerbread."
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? He loves gingerbread men as well. He absolutely loves them. But
Absolutely.
but
But
yeah. So what do you think? What is your take on trance mediumship?
again, I explain to me what trans mediumship is.
Um, well, trance mediumship is quite a refined aspect of mediumship. It's where part of our energies blend between the spirit realm and also this realm. The only way that I can explain it is basically the blending of my aura with a spirit's aura, which basically then changes the facial aesthetics and also any sort of demeanor and things like that. I've only ever done it once.
Okay,
Um,
so it's almost like the scrying when you try scrying, and you're bringing that energy into your own.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
similar, but it's through trance mediumship and basically it happened to me in such a weird way and it just happened really quickly. Um so this was at Drakelow Tunnels.
Mhm.
Um my most favorite place ever. It drains me for days afterwards, but it's it's a strange place to me because the first time I went in, I was like, oh, I'm not sure what to expect. The second time I went in, I was absolutely fine. And the third time I went in, nothing happened. And
Mm.
the first time I went in was when this happened. And basically, I was stood near to a table, and there were five of us around. And I know I mentioned this with Gary not long ago because obviously Gary's one of my best friends in the whole paranormal. So I spoke to Gary about it and he came on the show as well and we discussed it a little bit more in
Mm.
detail. But I would just remember being stood with my hand on a table and I felt like my body wasn't my own. And
Right.
literally I could see him and he was talking to me and that is I could just see his mouth moving, but I couldn't hear a word he was saying.
Mm.
And then literally I felt like I was dropping to my knees. And as I dropped to my knees, I sort of like came round and I looked at Gary and he was like, you all right? And I was like, what's just happened? And there was just no, it was literally the lights were on, but nobody was home sort of thing. It was
Yeah.
so strange to actually to feel like that. And it,
So I mean I don't see why they can't like spirits can um, affect you in that way because essentially they are energy. But what sort of energy, I don't know. So I don't see
mm,
why they can't affect you if their energy is a bit stronger than yours, possibly.
yeah, I think, well, I'm just obviously read up on stuff like this previously. And I think when the blending in between spirit and medium is really close, and
Mm.
at one, there's got to be cooperation on both sides. There's got to be an awful lot of trust, and
Yeah,
then obviously the spirit will then almost take over the mind of the mediums with the medium's consent, and then obviously the motor controls because that's through the nervous system
yeah,
to make it possible to move around and show the relationship and the trust, obviously
yeah.
between spirit and between medium. Now
Yeah, no,
that has
I
to,
know
yeah,
exactly what you mean. It's
yeah.
almost like the whole Bruce Banner and the Hulk
Mm.
battle
But
going on.
you've got to have that special relationship though, because if you
Yeah,
haven't, then it isn't going to work, is it? You know, you've got to, you know,
yeah,
there's
no,
so
that
many
that makes
different
sense.
levels though of trans mediumship. It's when, you know, you've got your beginners, you've got your intermediates, like Gary, and Gary's like advanced basically, and
Mm.
it, you know, it's things like, and I'm looking into that more and more and more on a, you know, on a weekly basis, and you know, obviously I'm really busy with work at the moment, and really busy just, you know, with everything going on at home,
Yeah,
and
I mean, I don't believe for a second that it would change your facial features because I know, like going through with the scrying, for example, when people say about the energy coming in and changing their face, I don't believe for a second that it does actually do that. I think it's more of a visual thing,
yeah,
and if anything, the energy is having an effect on your brain, which is in turn possibly making you hallucinate,
Yeah,
that would be more of a logical explanation. But you're still
yeah, I think.
obviously you're still being affected by spirit, just in a different way to what you think.
See, I love discussing stuff like this with you because you actually give a rational take on it. I've actually watched, and I mean, there were four other people with me at the same time, watched a gentleman who'd had no trance experience whatsoever,
Mm.
change his facial features, change his stance, and he even said he was like, I felt like I wanted to rip somebody's head off.
Yeah,
And that was for somebody who'd never experienced, never done any sort of mediumship, never done anything like that. But for him to come out and say, I'm impressed, that was
yeah,
that's something, especially, for a mere, I say a mere mortal, but somebody who's never had a medium reading or anything, and was quite skeptical before that. When
mm.
he came in the group with us at Drakeflow and that happened, that was unbelievable.
Yeah. So there was like four people witnessing the facial changes as well.
Yeah, it was. We had an infrared light on, obviously, because it's a bit like scrying, like you say.
Yeah.
But yeah, his face changed totally.
Okay. Could that also then be, assuming that it is a spirit connecting with him to make him see the facial changes? Could it also not be affecting you, everyone in that room as well? So sort of like having a
Quite,
knock-on effect.
quite possibly. I never really looked at it like that, if I'm honest.
Yeah. It just. I mean, again, we're talking about energies and how big is the spiritual energy? Can it,
Mm.
is it literally just confined to a body shape, or when it comes into the room, can it fill the whole room? If that's the
Would you?
case,
Yeah,
then it could affect everybody in it to
yeah.
witness the same facial changes.
But would they have had to be capable of achieving an altered state of consciousness, though, in order to see that? If that was the case, if we all saw it at the same time, does that mean that we would have all had to have that same altered state of consciousness to be able to witness what we witnessed?
Very possibly. Or, I mean, it could just be a case of that you was all looking towards the one person that was doing the actual scrying and concentrating, and it just sort of affected it that way. Possibly, I don't really have all the answers, so I'm just clutching at straws,
No.
to be fair. But
Yeah. I mean, I'm
it's
just.
thinking outside the box, sort of thing. It's it could have an effect on everybody. But again, you don't know how strong this energy was, so it might just be a case of it can affect everybody when it fancies it, basically.
Yeah. I think trans mediumship as well. There are quite a lot of different levels, isn't there? Sorry, I was just yawning then. I've been up quite early this morning, so not really slept much, to be honest. But
Okay.
um, but yeah, with advanced trance mediums who are out there,
Mm.
there used
Yeah,
to be
I
one
think
lady.
there has got to be different levels, and you get
Oh,
different
definitely.
levels in everything. I mean, even paranormal investigator circles, you do get the people that have just started, and they're learning just as much as
Mm,
the people that have been in it years and years. So, we're all learning at different rates. So if someone gives you constructive criticism on one of your pictures that you've put up, don't sort of like dismiss it. Just sort of take it on board and learn from that. And that's I would assume it's the same as the mediumship.
yeah, it is, and it is. It's like anything else. We it's like when I first started, you have to start somewhere. It's like anything, isn't it? Any
Mm.
job, any sort of hobby you take up, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
you know, and not everybody has all the answers. And nobody can profess to know all the answers because we're all still learning. And
That's right. I mean, we can only come up with ideas and theories, and you can think outside the box as much as you want. It doesn't make you right or wrong. It's just a case of It's sort of taking that idea, running with it, and seeing what you can get using that idea. And people get different results every time, and that's what it's all about. I think at the end of the day.
Mm.
I mean, there was one time when you couldn't move through Facebook without seeing an orb picture, but now a lot of people have learned that orbs are not always necessarily spiritual. In fact, 99% of them you could just explain away as dust, moisture, or bugs. So you don't get that many these days. So it's sort
Yeah.
of like spread through the paranormal. So even some of the newer people have learned that already, which is a
Mm.
good thing. So it just goes to show that the paranormal world is progressing.
Yeah. But do you think there's a lot of paranormal investigators out there who are learning bad habits from other teams or other groups?
Um, I, I don't know about bad habits, but maybe bad practices, I
Yeah.
think, would be best to describe some of them.
Mm.
But, they're only as good as their teachers at the end of the day. And if they just happen to pick the wrong teachers, then they're going to be taught badly. But I would hope that eventually someone would just say to them, no, look, instead of doing it this way, how about having a go and doing it this way instead? And
Yeah.
that's how people learn. And as long as they stay open minded and they take it on board and learn from it, then eventually they'll just grow, and that's what it's all about. I think at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think with regard to, people kind of not learning, do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, I think some people out there, and I'm speaking from personal experience with certain people,
Hmm.
they just don't want to learn. I think they realise that well, they think that the paranormal is just this hotbed of cash generation, and for argument's sake, they just want to make a bit of money. But what they don't realise is that the paranormal community as a whole is so small, and everybody knows everybody.
Hmm.
And if you make a mistake within the paranormal world, that is going to come back and bite you on the arse, isn't it?
Absolutely, I do believe that. I mean, I've been in the paranormal world for quite a while now, and you get to know. I mean, different phrases means different things to me. So, say for example, a ghost hunter. For me, the term ghost hunter means it's just someone that's out for a laugh. They want to go out with their mates, look for ghosts, and then go home. They're not interested in learning. They're not interested in anything else other than just the thrill of the chase, and that's it. The paranormal investigators are the ones that want to do the research. They want to learn. They want to
Hmm.
progress. And they want to build cases and things like that, and they're quite happy to learn from others and move forward. And then obviously you've got the academics that just do the investigations and stuff, and they've got all the scientific stuff behind them. And so there are times when the academics and the paranormal investigators cross over because they help us as much as we help them. So
Hmm.
I think it just depends on what you class yourself, and there's a lot of paranormal investigators out there that are not investigators and they are ghost hunters.
Hmm.
You know, but I'm always happy to help people learn and progress if that's what they want to do. But the day they turn around to me and say, "Well, look, I know it all. I'm not interested in what you've got to say. I'm better off without it," sort of thing, then I'm like, "Okay, well, off you go. See you later. Do what you like." Not
Yeah,
interested.
I think people who are going to be like that is very I think they're very small-minded because
Hmm.
they any sort of help to better yourself is going to be accepted by anybody, I think, in this field. But obviously, some people claim to know everything, so it's
Yeah, I just don't. I don't. I mean, me personally, I don't like that mentality. Um, but I mean, if I've got an opinion, at least respect it. You don't have to take it on board. I'm not always right. Granted. Um, but I've been around for quite a while in the paranormal, so if I think something isn't paranormal, then chances are it probably isn't. But there's still times when I could be wrong. So it's just an educated theory that I would come up with,
Yeah.
more than anything, and it's based on experience, not expertise. Unless obviously they turn around and say, "Oh yeah, we had this case and it's a medical problem," and then maybe I might just put my medical hat on and go, "Well, actually, in my expert opinion," but that's about as far as I go.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I know it's been a bit of a mishmash, hasn't it, really, tonight? It's
It's
kind of
been
a bit
good
of a pop-up
actually.
show, but it's kind of like trying to discuss about mediumship back in the day and what, trying to find out what taking from obviously your point of view is, because you're not a
Yeah.
medium, which I think sometimes to do this show, you kind of need people like you on there that you can,
Absolutely. You've
you
got to
can,
sort of
well,
have an objective view.
yeah, you've got to have an objective view because if we had mediums on all the time, it becomes a little bit stale, I think. So it's been nice to kind of have somebody push those boundaries, I think, with regards to trance mediumship and how it happens. And
Absolutely, and you got another show out of it with the Animal Connection.
yeah, I think that's a great one. I think I need to do. But honestly, my friend is she is absolutely phenomenal with animals anyway.
Hmm.
But she is one of these introvert people who would never dream of coming on a radio show. She's so shy,
Yeah.
but she's always been spot on with me, and she's always been lovely and adorable. And you know,
Hmm.
whatever she said to me, I'm just gonna hopefully watch this space because it's all
Yeah.
unfolding.
Excellent.
Yeah, so it's not too bad, but
Yeah.
it's been a good show tonight.
It has
Um,
definitely.
um, I
So
kind
what have
of
you got coming up for next week? Or have you not got that
we
far yet?
have Chris Fleming next week. This was rescheduled from our second show due to time differences. So
Okay.
yeah, I've requested him on the 9th of the 9th. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I want next week. So I'm in the
Excellent.
in the
Look forward to that.
process. Yeah, he's going to be on next week, but I'm going to be in the process of making sure his calendar is very firmed up. And yeah,
Excellent.
I'm going to have to badger him, I think, for the next week and just say, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
but
Every
it would
every
be
10
great to talk
minutes.
to him. Yeah, yeah. I'll email him every day. Don't forget this time tomorrow. Don't forget this time tomorrow. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's phenomenal anyway, and it's going to be so interesting to speak to him because the whole show that I did a couple of weeks ago that I wrote out and planned and everything that I wanted to ask him was just literally he was I felt a bit put out really. I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask all these questions and you know bless my friends for stepping in as like you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really appreciate it, and it's great that I do have, the people to kind of help out if anybody does decide,
Yeah, no,
that they're ill or anything like that, which is nice. I'm
that's not a
quite well
problem.
connected,
I'm available most
so
evenings.
but thank you so much for coming on this evening,
No
and
problem. I've
as
enjoyed it.
always. And as always, you can, if you would like to click like and subscribe. Oh, do you know what? I can never get this right, Paul. Click,
That's
like,
why I don't do
share,
it.
and subscribe. And you can catch us on YouTube and you can catch us on Parasearch Radio on Facebook. Have I missed anything else?
We've got a website where we can do blogs, or where we've got blogs out. There's lots
Yep.
of those.
And we've got some great shows coming up this week. We've got Haunted Histories with the lovely Penny. And we've also got PSH Radio. We've got the Dark Mirror Show. And Paul, what's your show called?
Paranormal Concept Show. Yeah,
Exactly. So that'll be
that's it.
on tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 9. We've also got Neil Packer's show on before my show from 8 till 9, and that's Haunted Connections.
Good.
They did tell me who was on, but I can't for the life of me remember. So it's on our Parasearch Facebook page, so go and have a look.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's all from me for tonight. I'm sure you've enjoyed listening to our dulcet tones this evening, but that's a good night from me.
And it's a good night from me.